Hi Nancy, how are you?
I'm good. How about you?
Good. I almost panicked when it was 4 minutes till the meeting and I was the only one here. I thought there'd been another email and I'd missed it and things had been changed.
No, it's only 3:57. You know us Unitarians. Hi,
I,
Tom. You're on mute.
Did you hear anything more about Lyle?
Just that Lyle Morris had a heart attack, Cindy. Uh,
ah,
he goes in for surgery tomorrow. Sue, do you know any more about that?
No, as board chair of pastoral care team, I did call Julianne and left her a message to please keep us informed if she has a wherewithal after his surgery so we can reach out in any way.
He looked great Saturday night.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
I mean, his,
It's just it's sad to hear, but he looks very healthy, and so I have all hopes that he'll have this surgery and be better. And he's got she was a nurse, wasn't she? Yeah.
And did they catch this fairly early with a quick response? Do you know?
I don't know any details.
The only thing I know is that Betty sent me an email, Betty Bradabo, saying that Lyle had had a heart attack and that he was going in for surgery tomorrow.
Yes, and we as chair, Betty and I had received, the notification we received was from Rebecca. And she often does that, so we know to reach out to someone.
Wow.
Hey. Okay, we are close to being our 4 o'clock timing, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's see, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I did exchange text with Doug, and he's not going to be able to make our meeting. So we will only have 6. That's the way it goes.
Well, he's in England, isn't he?
Ireland, British Isles, I think it's Ireland. So yeah, we're gonna try to have um, a matchup with Facebook or something. I don't know. He must have a card for the British Isles because if he's able to text me without being charged, then he must have a card, a SIM card for the British Isles.
Hi, Lynn.
Hello. Okay, it now being 4 o'clock, and we have 6 board members here. I did announce that Doug Deaton will not be able to join us, so we'll just proceed ahead. So I'm calling the meeting in the morning, the meeting together at 4 o'clock. And the first item on the agenda is kind of to amend and approve the agenda. The board members and, we've been kind of updating the agenda all day long, but it's basically the same. We did a little rearranging, and I did add an issue on whether we would vote as a board to urge the congregation to adopt the apartheid petition or not. So that will be in there. Is there anything else that needed to be added? Any thoughts that need to be added regarding the agenda? Okay, seeing none, we'll approve that agenda, and I will be using my version 3, which will be pretty close with a slight rearrangement or addition, and I'll describe that in each instance. And the other thing is to approve the either amend or approve the minutes from the April meeting. Those were circulated to the board members. Any updates or changes to those? Okay, seeing no objection or no comments, we'll consider that to be done, that they have been adopted and they'll become official. And the next item is our June meetings, which would be June 18th at 1:30 PM for the executive committee meeting, and that's to accommodate Doug, who will still be in the British Isles or otherwise traveling. And that will have a regular fourth Wednesday, June 25th meeting at 4 PM for that. So any comments or objections to that? Okay, seeing none, those will be the dates. June 18th at 1:30 PM for the exec committee meeting. Then the next thing, as you all know, we need to decide who would be our floating trustee at that next meeting. So we have a volunteer. Sue, you're muted, but I see that you would be
Yes,
willing.
I could do that. That would be my last meeting,
Yes,
last month.
yes, yes. And then we don't have a minister's update or report because as everybody knows, Todd is on sabbatical. Then that comes to, I think this is the same on everybody else's agenda, the new business, which we're doing a little rearranging here from the standard agenda, but that's with regard to the GA delegates. We're entitled to 5. We have one in the form of Dick Burkhart, who's signed up and agreed to be that. Apparently, we have we can sign up almost to the onset of the meetings, which is what, June 22nd, 23rd, 24th, that range. And if we're going to do that, we need to let Rebecca know so she can officially credential us. And there is $150 fee. And so far, there's been no response to our notice in the Sun.
The
And
$150 fee can be, if you ask for a waiver, it can be waived.
oh, okay, well, that would be
Now,
something.
that's the nominal fee. And I expect there'll be maybe people who will say, I can't afford that, or I just ask for a reduction or no fee at all.
That's per person.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, and so I signed up with the UUA, and I decided to pay the $150 fee, but just to be nice to them for one time. I don't know.
yeah,
But I would say it's not necessary, and Rebecca can file your credentials within a few minutes, I think. It's not a big deal. She knows how to do that exactly.
okay.
And then I got a response from the UUA within a few hours or the next day, something like that.
Okay, well, do we have any suggestions? I guess the obvious question, do any of the board members wish to be a GA representative? And maybe you can explain, Dick, how there can be limited participation and possibly still have an influence.
Yeah, well, if you do the $150 of the free, as you're just a business delegate, it means you won't be allowed to go into any of the regular programs, but you get to attend all the business meetings. And I think that includes the usually the WARE lecture and the Sunday morning service are open to the public, so to speak, too. You don't have to have a business for that. So it's mainly you would be attending business meetings by Zoom or voting. You could not attend any, if you know what you want to vote on, you could do that beforehand, even without even going to anything. So that's or anything in between. And the key thing is this year they will be voting on new moderators. And the moderators are ones who run the GA board and they conduct the General Assembly meetings. And a lot of people aren't aware of it, that we elect in UUA a president of the UUA who's the president sort of manages everything. But the moderators are in effect the chair of the board. There's a board, and the ultimate authority in UA actually comes from the moderators and the board. So they are a lot more important than most people realize. They often let the president take the lead in many things, but historically there's been considerable amount of tension between the moderators and the president, because we tend to elect the president to be our sort of leader up there and guider, but the real authority is with the board. So you can see the potential there for and that's always been one of the issues in terms of the bylaws and revision of how the UA works. It's been something people have looked at for probably the last generation. How can you change how things work so there's not that kind of tension?
But is it true, Dick, that there's kind of a interesting situation going on where one person running for a moderator and two people running for co-monitors? Can you address that a little bit?
Yeah, well, at one point in the past, there were just single persons as moderators. And they ran the General Assembly, and they were very, very they were very visible. But in the last well, I don't know, since 2017, I think when Peter Morales resigned and whatnot, I think they had 3 co-presidents, and pretty soon we had after 2017 we had, I think, two moderators coming in, and so we've actually had 2 moderators for the last 6 years right now. It's Charles Dumont and Meg Riley. So right now 2 moderators is the norm, and so the choice now is between 2 people as 2 moderators or 1 person as 1 moderator, and I know one of the pair is Bill Young, who's on the board now and has been the board secretary for quite a few years. And I found he's pretty reliable. And like when I ran for an office a couple of years ago for the nominating committee, I had to work through Bill Young for all the procedures, and he was very, very helpful and friendly. And so I've a fairly good feeling for him. I don't know much about the co-moderators. I think an African American woman from Chicago or something, or maybe that's the third one. The third one is just a single moderator. I think maybe that's the one from Chicago.
Well, Dick, would you be willing, as you and I corresponded a little bit by email, would you be willing to kind of be if we had more than yourself as a GA delegate, would you be willing to kind of work with us to help those of us who can't be as totally involved, but would possibly be able to get in there and vote occasionally, and particularly getting a census moderator situation might be something that would be helpful to UUA in maybe moderating some of its positions. Would you be?
Yeah, and one of the issues is that how do you learn about these moderators, and where you need to see them in action, so to speak. And I've been trying to interest the 2 other boards I'm on, UUJC and UMIAC, to see if they would be willing to host a candidates forum, but I haven't yet succeeded. They're kind of leery of that. And I'm going to be looking for candidates forums. If not, there'll be at least one official candidate forum. I haven't yet got a date on that. And when there is an official forum, then I'll notify everyone, because that will be important. But there could be other forums that are less official.
Okay, well, I'm going to volunteer to be a delegate who will be most interested in the voting in meetings and seeking guidance from you. And I don't know, any other board members willing to jump in?
Before I'll say one more thing. It's not just the moderator position. There are a couple of minor other votes, but the major thing is on the bylaws or whatever. There are the proposals for 3 congregational study action issues. These are 3 to 4 year processes, and they're major things. And there also will be some actions of immediate witness. And so far there have been and what I intend to do is to study these in detail. And I know something about some of these, but I haven't had a chance to do a detailed analysis. But like on the study action issue, the one I'm most favorable to right now is on housing, the need for more affordable housing in the country. And there's also one on prison ministries called abolition, which I'm a little more suspicious of because I'm not too sure about that word abolition, and what that implies. And there's also one on fat liberation, and again, those two ones, the fat liberation and abolition, I'm more suspicious of because they seem to be more involved with woke ideology and that kind of stuff. Whereas the housing one uses the words DEI in it, but I know Bob Murphy, the one who put that together, and he just put those in there so he could get it passed. If you put together something and you don't have the right words in there, it'll be shot down. So he wanted to get his thing on housing. There's a lot of work in Florida on housing. And he wanted to
Okay.
get it passed, so he put the words DEI in there, to get the right feel for the voters out there.
Yeah,
But
okay,
the others, I don't see that, and I don't know where all the actions are immediate witness yet. Some of them I think have been stated, but I haven't seen descriptions of those yet. But they're likely to be important, and they're also likely to be a mixed bag. So we may have some things that we'll want to vote, maybe a few things for, but probably quite a few things against also, just because of the framing that goes on with these things. A lot of us don't like the woke ideology and what that means and
sure.
how that will play out with the larger public.
Thank
Okay,
you for your feedback. Does anybody want to volunteer?
I'm gonna put another notice in the Sun and elaborate a little bit that there are some issues that could affect UUA nationally, and that there is a means by which you can, and I'm not sure that the term, but not paying $150, and I remember seeing that when I looked at the registration. So thank you very
Yeah,
much.
like I said, you use the term waiver. You can
Waiver. Okay.
request a waiver. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and of course, they want you to pay, but you don't have to.
Yeah, okay, I got
It's like any organization, it doesn't mean you have to. Yeah.
Okay, the next item here that we've got is the budget. And I think that all of you got a copy of the budget, and Nancy has some additional and new information to share with us. And why don't we just jump off with your recent contacts with Rebecca and apparently indirectly with Todd.
Yeah, I didn't even realize till I looked at the budget that the fundraising team is responsible for $57,000.
Mhm.
And so I am asking the board, however you do this, to permit a second ask. I think that what has happened is, unless you're on the board, you don't know the ins and outs of how many of our members died, how many we have that are incapacitated, and Rebecca feels it's best not to ask them to pledge because they wouldn't really know what they were doing. And that's too big of a shortfall. And so I think we need to go back to the congregation. I talked with Rebecca and she is for that. And I asked Todd about it and he is for it, and he's approved my speaking at the service this Sunday with a second ask if the board approves it. And I don't know where you put it in the budget, but
Yeah, well, I know, I took a look at that and I agree with you. I think you're on the right track. The thing that Rebecca has written up, I read that carefully today, and she's assuming that there'll be a major fundraising effort for that $57,000, which is it is feasible in one sense, but it would require some really hotshot fundraisers, I'll tell you that, and really dedicated fundraisers. Because
We
some organizations know how to do that kind of thing, but usually it takes years to work up to it. And we've only got, as far as I can tell, the major, the auction. You need what, 6 or 7 auctions to, and bigger ones or things like that. So that needs to be resolved. as fundraising, it's a long shot. But if there's another ask, that could make it easier. I did see one other thing in what Rebecca sent out. She doesn't have yet complete reports on all this stuff because of the software changeover she's working on. But one thing I got, she said that there was a $12,000 shortfall from the previous pledge drive. As far as I can tell, it's actually a $30,000 shortfall. I should try to contact her and figure that out because last year the goal was like 282,000, and this year what she has down is 252,000 as the goal for the pledge drive. And so that's a $30,000 but maybe the 250,000 is more the realistic act rather than the goal on that. So, but it is a big shortfall. The other thing she said, there was one major donor who died who helped make up some of the shortfall, and I got to clarify where that falls, if that's in the numbers I've seen, like the 252,000 or not on that. But yeah, your effort is certainly going to be very much needed. And I noticed there's a proposal like by Lynn Janishian to really work this situation hard because in terms of the fundraising and all these things, the need has been there, but so far nothing big has happened beyond in terms of fundraising, except for the usual stuff.
Well, Sue,
I'm in favor of Nancy's proposal. I think 50-some thousand will be difficult, no matter how much energy we have to do. And I think a clear explanation to the congregation as to why some of this shortfall took place would bring a better understanding, maybe some more empathy. So I'm for it.
well, let me ask Nancy, there's been some talk about one possible event is a musical event that could well involve Riche and Jackie and maybe even Madeline. So there's something in the works, and you have some, Lynn, apparently some ideas, Lynn. So there seems to be some momentum building, but the question is, do we actually try to modify line items saying there'll be more pledges and less outside income, or do we just recommend the budget as it is, realizing that if the income comes in a little different line items, that's something that can be dealt with after the fact?
We have currently, I think I sent out an email to about 10 people who expressed interest in this fundraising effort, but it is not realistic to expect that we can raise 57,000. So
Sure.
however you do it, I just need you, I guess, to approve a second ask. I don't know.
Okay, and
And Todd, Tom?
one more question to clarify, and then Sue, and then or Lynn, or one or the other. So would the bid to do a second asking, would that be more than just from the pulpit, or would it also be come in some kind of an email going to at least selected members? Did you all talk about that?
We did not. We said we would do it from the pulpit, but it could definitely be, I'm writing down what I'm going to say, and it could definitely go into the Sun.
Okay. Sue first, and then Lynn.
I don't know that it's the board. I think it's the board's place to approve it or not, or recommend it. I don't think it's our place to figure out how it is done, what line item it's put on. That's what Rebecca will take care of. So I feel it's just, do we agree that or disagree?
Well, there are really two things here. One is to approve the second ask, but we also need to approve a budget that the board recommends to the congregation. So, we kind of have to do both. But Lynn, and then, Sue?
Well, just to follow up on that, if we're going to make a second ask, I don't know that I can approve a budget until we're done with seeing how much we bring in. So is this, Okay, Lynn, you're shaking. Tell
I'm
me
sorry.
what.
I'm sorry, Sue. Only
That's okay.
because, well, you already all did sort of approve the budget, right? Remember when
Okay.
Rebecca asked you all all of you who were present at the budget summit.
Okay.
And so Tom is correct too, that uh, y- y- there will be a second ask. No one will know how long that's going to take and to go on. And more funds will continue to come in as they already are, apparently. So the budget always has some flexibility. That's built into our bylaws, and the operations has flexibility to move things around as things come in. So there are two things I think that you're talking about. And right now, Nancy needs your approval for the second ask. I would definitely encourage you, especially since it's Memorial Day weekend, to put something in the sun beyond just the pulpit. It's probably going to be low attendance this weekend.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
Yeah.
then in my discussions with Rebecca, the budget in her mind is already approved, but of course there will be some tweaking as to where things go as the fundraising team gets going and this new ask brings in hopefully additional funds.
but
Okay.
that is up to Rebecca to put those where they
That's
go.
Rebecca. Yep.
Okay,
And
And
she, in her mind, I mean, this is just sort of a formality for you to approve this budget because you've got your annual meeting.
okay.
Okay, I saw, you had your hand up, Justin, or not? And you're muted. Okay,
Okay,
now-
let's try that, see if that works.
yeah,
I did have a question. I agree the important thing is the second ask. One question I have is just how much money these things like Lyle Morris brought in. Anybody have a figure on that?
I think it was about $1,200 total.
Okay, so we need 50 of those things to, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so
okay, well,
thank you. You answered my question perfectly. Thank you.
okay. Unless, yeah, go ahead, Nancy.
Let me just share this from Rebecca. As far as the budget is concerned, it is what it is right now. We need to have the board's approval at tonight's meeting. We are not making any further adjustments before the approval. However, if we happen to get more pledges prior to the annual meeting, we can easily make the adjustment between the pledge and fundraising line item. Remember that the budget is a projected plan of how things will go, and we always make adjustments in our working budget down the road.
Okay,
I'd like to add to that, that
go ahead.
it's not just choice between like pledges and fundraising. It's also choice, you have to add also how much is taken out of reserves or contingency. And if the pledges and fundraising fall short, it comes out of reserves and contingency, and that's not sustainable. So you gotta look very carefully at that also.
No. Okay, as the chairman of a small board, I can make motions, so I move that the board approve a second asking as has been set forth by Nancy Avery in consultation with Rebecca.
I second it.
Okay, okay. Mhm.
Okay, that is unanimous. And good luck, Marilyn, you'll have to do that one by dictation. Okay, and then secondly, I move that the board adopt and recommend to the congregation at the annual meeting, the budget that was a result of Budget Summit 2.
I second it.
Mhm,
Okay, those in favor?
mhm.
Okay, that's a unanimous decision of the 6 of us who are here. Okay, that takes care of that item 13.2 on my list. Okay, the next thing we're down to president's reports and a little bit of annual meeting discussion and update. Rebecca informs me that there are 243 certified members in good standing, and that with a 15% quorum, that would mean that our meeting would need to have 36 of those members present, which shouldn't be too hard to achieve. The other thing is that she and I have been working on an agenda, and we've got it pretty solidified, except with regard to how motions might end up with respect to the member-sponsored amendment. And then a question will come up a little bit later here. Do we, as a board, want to take a position on whether or not to recommend voting for, the congregation voting for or against the apartheid-free thing? And although it's not been done before, there isn't anything that prohibits us from actually, in the notice of the meeting, having a comment that the board recommends passage of this amendment. So that'll be a discussion that we'll have. But are there, you all have received some draft, I think the latest draft amendment she and I have worked on for the annual meeting agenda. Are there any comments other than a few things that we need to decide in this meeting?
Well, Tom, I thought we had already agreed not to have a recommendation on the apartheid-free thing.
Well, I think that could be, that was that we weren't going to do it, but if that is what we recommended, then we would have to stand back on that. I'm not sure. I thought that we just said that we weren't going to recommend.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
That the board wasn't going to take action on it.
Right, that's what I mean. That board would not take a position on that, leave it up to the congregation. That means, doesn't mean that we wouldn't personally favor of it.
Oh,
but
yeah.
We would let the congregation make the decision.
Okay, well, that little discussion will come up a little bit later.
Mhm.
And we can clarify that, but generally speaking, any comments about the agenda that you all received as a draft, I don't know, version 3 or whatever it was?
For today's meeting?
No, for the annual meeting.
Oh, for the annual meeting, no.
Yeah. She did clarify that in one of my earlier agendas, I wasn't sure what was going to be the role, Dick, that you served as treasurer and she served. And she clarified that she would be at the meeting and that she would be handling the treasurer's report, and that she would also be the one who would be presenting the budget. And then the congregation would have to decide whether to adopt the budget.
Who is she?
Rebecca.
Rebecca, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Good.
well, she handles all the numbers basically, so.
Yeah.
I mean, some congregations, the treasurer does a lot more in terms of the actual numbers, yeah.
Yeah, and that remains to be seen at such time as we are able to secure a treasurer. That would be, changes would be occurring.
Yeah, and sometimes the treasurer could have other roles too, like
Sure.
fundraising, but I've decided that's not my role in this congregation.
That's, understand that. Okay, let's see, that was 7.1. Then the next one on there is a short report, which I received, we all received a little written report from Luba. So if you want to just go through that so that it's on the verbal recording, and it'll be attached to the minutes.
You're muted.
Sorry about that. I'll skip what Rebecca brought up at that meeting because we heard everything she said about the budget summit summit to adjustment to finances and annual meeting planning. So the other topics at the ops meeting were as follows: QuickBooks changes online, which is in work in progress, importing data from the previous years and clearing out some accounts. The other one was issues with grass mowing and watering, fixing the water drip system and finding a volunteers to save the money. And I heard that Lynn did, yes, showed her muscle and went there with a mower with Robert.
Oh, good.
And did something great. Yes.
No, it's just outside of the RE and off the Friendship Hall. we're waiting for Donovan to take care of the play structure area and the really tall grass down below. But
What about to just the north, behind the kitchen, there's some grass area there that was getting pretty long that I think we normally.
so I used the weed eater on that.
Okay.
But the weed eater the battery keeps dying on me, so I'm doing it little by little.
Oh, yeah.
But it looks better than it did.
Thank you. Do we not have a regular, I know it used to be Don and he's not doing it now, but do we not have a regular mower person now?
We do not, but Don, I think, still wants to when he can. His back has been out, so that, and then the rain came, and
Yeah.
that's why it got as long as it did. And there were some issues with that, and issues with one of the mowers. So Robert had to come start the mower, but then I was good, and it's all
Thank
good.
you.
We're working on it,
Yeah.
but we may need some more volunteers.
Oh, we definitely do on that,
Yeah.
buildings and grounds. We're aging out.
Right,
That's
Well-
true. Anyway, and the last topic was progress in developing the church website, integrating new application for an easy access to information and donation for the church. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Don't have a written report that I know of from Cindy as the secretary, but you have things you'd like to update us on that will at least be in the minutes, and we, if you could follow up later, if there's anything of substance you might want to put in a short report.
Yeah, I really don't have much, I was not available for last month's meeting, and so I did not forward anything. I didn't forward the complete minutes to Rebecca. And I've tried to contact Rebecca. I don't know if this is really the place for that. I've tried to contact Rebecca on the let's see, on our website, some of the information on that you had contacted me about, Tom, and I've not had any reply from her, so I'll pester her again tomorrow.
Yeah, apparently she may not be feeling well. I got a little bit of that back, but yeah, she needs to receive the approved minutes from the April and possibly the March meeting if she hasn't already received those. And then the other thing that I spotted when I went to the website and looked at the policy and procedures governance document, the section 5 regarding member-sponsored resolutions or team-sponsored resolutions, that wasn't on the copy there. So there needs to be some follow-up on that.
Yeah, and that's what I intended to talk with her about, and we just haven't been able to talk to arrange a time.
Okay, how about, moving to item on my schedule, number 10, anything you'd want to update us on, Dick, that some of us know a lot about, what happened at the budget summit, but do you have anything else to add to that?
Not really. I said I have this one issue with Rebecca. Is it $12,000 shortfall on the budget, or is it 30,000? I'm gonna try to clarify that.
Do you have any update on the generosity drive, how it actually is at this point, knowing that there's still straggling stuff coming in?
Again, this 12,000 seems to be related to what's going on there, but she didn't give any, to me, in her financial report, she didn't give anything on the pledge drive other than that number, and then the reduced reduction from 282,000 last year to 252,000 this year. So I haven't seen any kind of breakdown yet on that.
Okay. All right.
I sent her an email about that, but I think she's still working on it.
Yeah, well, as usual, she's way overloaded. She works about 120% of.
Yeah, well, she said there's this new software she's switching to, and sometimes the new reports aren't working properly, and she has to go through different old reports or whatever to find out numbers.
Yeah, I've heard that from other from other people
Yeah,
who
yeah,
maybe
so, some
changed
of these
something.
things, if you have the right reports, it's instant. But if
Yeah.
the reports aren't right, you've got to go through sometimes line by line to figure things out.
Right. Okay, then next thing would be team reports, and I just put down on there the social justice coordinating team or social justice coordinating council. Do you have anything to update us on that you could share with us, Nancy?
We continue to do as much information sharing as possible. We have Barb Stubing this Sunday, and then okay, her name just went out of my brain. Jennifer Calvert on the first Sunday in June, speaking for 2 minutes about why they support it. You know, the UUA has already supported and joined this movement.
That I didn't, I've heard that, but that would be something you should officially make sure that people know that. And if you know of other churches, that would be helpful. Any commentary about whether you think, I don't know how many Jewish congregations or synagogues there are in town. Is there a liberal and a conservative? And any commentary that might satisfy people's concern about a conservative Jewish synagogue being upset or not, I don't know, but I think you need to address that somewhere in the meeting, not necessarily before the meeting, but very possibly in your presentation when the resolution is put on the floor.
Okay,
Okay, and I don't think there's any other team report here, although I got a notice about buildings and grounds on the 28th of May. And weeds was the major factor. That's a major factor in behind me in my natural area. I'm weed cutting the grass growing up through my ground cover. I'm doing it about once a week and it's still gaining ground. So I know what the problem is. Okay, the next item would be old business and this is where we were with the little discussion we had before. Do we, at this point, want to have a recommendation of the board to support or not, or do we think that's a dead issue? I don't, without going back and finding the minutes, I don't know whether we actually took
Support, what are you talking about, Tom? Support what?
the apartheid-free,
Oh, okay.
whether, I know the board decided not to take a position itself and deferred it to the congregation, but I can't recall whether or not and I suppose if you all talk about it, I could look through my electronic minutes. But I don't recall whether we actually said we would not even take a position with regard to what we recommend to the congregation. So if we want to discuss that or just not go there at all.
I don't see the difference I don't understand the difference there, Tom.
Well, one would be, we formally decided that the board itself would not sign the petition.
Mhm.
Then the other thing would be whether or not we would encourage the congregation to vote for it or to vote against it, or just not do anything at all.
Hmm.
So Sue, well, Lynn, your hand was
Then
up.
for you first, go ahead.
I was just going to say, you did not make that decision as a board. I'm positive because I've been paying attention to this particular thing. And that is something that has been done before, Tom, because when I was on the board, we did that with whether or not the board as a unit recommended, particularly related to member supported or member recommended bylaw amendment proposals.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to clarify that it has been done before because I heard you say that it hadn't been done before. But you have not decided as a board whether or not to support this particular one with the apartheid free.
Well, that was my recollection, but does the board wish to encourage the congregation to vote for or against it? And I see you have your hand up, Sue.
Nancy, you're presenting this, correct?
no,
Or the social justice team is?
no, Karen Dorn Steele is going to be the person that presents it at the meeting. Because Barb Stubing, who has been the biggest, she's
Yeah.
presenting it for the Social Justice Coordinating Council.
For me, Nancy, I would like to hear your thoughts on the board supporting it or not. Right, would you be willing to share that?
Well,
How important is that? I guess I have two things going for me. How important is that the board supported or not? And part of me wants to just say, let the congregation decide without our input.
as I said, it's already been approved by the UUA. They have signed, they have joined. How important is it that the board support it? I don't know. You have to look inside your heart, I guess. Look at what's going on in Palestine. And, you know, it probably doesn't matter in the end, Lynn.
I just would really encourage you guys, if you are in support of this as individuals, why would you not want to support it as leaders of our church? You would come across as taking a stand about something that means a lot to you as individuals, and you are a unit together too. I think it means a lot when the board supports a member proposed, because it gives people confidence. Our leaders believe in this. If you don't support it, which is fine too, but it does indicate that there if you are all for it, I would absolutely recommend that you do. If you are all against it, I would say that you should recommend that the congregation not support this. If there is mixed, then I would say you should not say anything. But I think it is important that you each state your thoughts on this. People want to know what their leaders think.
Okay,
Thank you, Lynn.
just a small piece of clarification. This resolution did not come from a member or members. It came from one of our recognized teams. That's a small point, but just so everybody's aware of that.
Well, do we need more discussion on this, or are we ready to say we are for it or we aren't?
And I'd like to raise another point. You know, I follow UUA affairs a lot, and one of the issues there is that whether or not the board supports something sometimes actually determines the outcome of the vote. You know, the people look, oh, the board supports it, we got, and it's become intertwined with woke ideology and all this kind of stuff. And so one argument would be that even though we support it personally, maybe we don't want to be in the position of sort of making it a loyalty kind of thing, as it is in the UUA. And so that's I strongly support it personally, but then I don't want to. I know Todd too is concerned about how the UUA operates, and do we want to just mimic that or not? You see.
Okay, well,
make a loyalty test or not.
one of the things I like to do is to get us off the dime, and that's, so I make a motion and then we'll decide. So I move that the board formally recommend that the congregation adopt the motion to become an apartheid-free community.
I second.
Second, we have a second.
Congregation, not community.
Yeah, whatever the resolution says, in the bigger sense, it's a community, but the membership would be voting on it. So we have a motion to have the board take a position in favor of the membership voting, yes, and or approval, and we have a second. So let's have a vote. Those in favor
Yes.
indicate. I see those, I see 6 in favor. So I will be communicating with, and this will be of course, in the minutes, and I'll be communicating with Rebecca that the notice on this item will include the board recommends in favor of the petition on that. Okay, the next item is, let's see, boy, well, we're quite a ways ahead of time here. That's cool. Talking about the member submitted bylaw amendment. It was submitted by Lynn with a support of about 9 others, at least 9 others. So would you like to give us a rundown and a pitch for the amendment?
Well, I think I sent all of you the motion and the
Yep.
proposed bylaw amendments, which are pretty simple. I tried to do it in a format that you're all pretty familiar with if you worked on any bylaw changes before. That just shows what words would be changed. I'm happy to share my screen if you want me to bring that document up, or I can put it in the chat, or if you need to see that again. It seems super clear to me. If you wanted in 2 different motions, I would use the same wording for both motions. If you want those 2 to be separated, we could do that. And then I did want to recommend one other thing that I probably should share my screen for if I have that option. And that is just to be a proactive board. If this, because I know that one of the concerns for people is whether or not ex officio members would count towards a quorum. And you get to decide that, or we as a congregation, we get to decide that because we write our own bylaws. And that is something that would, if you didn't do something about that at this annual meeting, you would have to wait a year to change that bylaw. But it's a really simple bylaw change that could come to the floor as a proposal if the other 2 proposals pass. If they fail, it's a moot point. But Article 6, Section 6 currently says 2/3 of the trustees shall constitute a quorum for a meeting and voting, except as otherwise provided in these bylaws. And then I would just recommend that you would, if my motions or our motions, or I'm sorry, our proposals amendments pass, that you could then step in and say, all right, we want to make sure that the presence or absence of ex officio members on the board does not affect our quorum. So that just gets simply written into Article 6, Section 6, by saying 2/3 of the elected trustees shall constitute a quorum for a meeting and voting, except as otherwise provided in these bylaws. And the presence or absence of ex officio members shall not affect quorum. Because ex officio members don't have the same attendance requirements as elected board members do. So frequently in our past, our treasurer rarely attended board meetings, even though they were officially an ex officio member. They rarely came, like Grant rarely came to a board meeting. Our senior minister, of course, when he's not on sabbatical, his attendance is pretty regular. But it's not required according to our bylaws, like attendance from an elected board member is. So that's just something to think about proactively. And it's incredibly, according to anything I've looked up, that is written in most nonprofit or church bylaws because they frequently have ex officio members on their boards to meet the needs of a board, particularly things that are required by law, like a treasurer or a secretary sometimes.
Can we have a discussion about this topic?
Of course.
Oh, yeah.
John? Yeah, okay.
Stu,
Go ahead. I'm sorry. I don't mean to run this. Go ahead.
well, let's see, I was looking down at something. I see three people that want to speak. I see Dick, and I see Justin, and I see Sue, and then
And
I
I
have,
have a question.
okay, you have a question, and then I have several questions, as you might imagine. So let's just start with you, Dick. You're in my upper left-hand corner.
I took down my hand. It was up by mistake.
Oh, okay. Well, then the next one would be Sue.
I think it was Justin. Go ahead, Justin.
Okay, I have thoughts for and against this, so my thought is the first one is the role of the minister. The bad side is that the minister could have a very heavy-handed vote. His influence could be great and could be too much. On the other hand, maybe the minister should have more influence. So that's my thing is, will bringing the minister on sway the board too much one way or another? And the question is, maybe he should sway it one way or the other. The other thing is, of course, coming back to the quorum. If we're going to add one, why not add two? That way the odd numbers stay odd. And my thought it would be beneficial to have more members, just in case there is not a quorum handy. So those are my concerns. All that other, I'm neutral on this, so I'm looking to hear arguments for or against.
I would like to address that. I want to be
Um,
super clear that everybody understands the senior minister is an ex officio board member.
Right,
Okay.
got
He is
that.
an ex officio non-voting board member right now.
Good.
So he's already an official board member.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
Just doesn't have full.
I've got that.
Okay.
It's the voting
So,
part.
so bringing on ex officio members, if you write it into the bylaws, it doesn't affect the quorum for you to be able to conduct business. It doesn't have to.
Mhm.
It shouldn't. And you would want to be very proactive about making sure that ex officio members are not counted in your quorum so that you can conduct business, because the attendance differences come into play.
Well, and just to add on to that, in my recollection, we have not ever had to cancel a board meeting.
No.
Because of lack of a quorum. We've been down close to it, but not had to.
No,
Not had to do that.
it's been pretty easy.
Sue.
I have things to say, but I would really like to hear Luba's question first.
Okay.
So in case I want to address that, anyway, please.
Well, that's it. Well, concerning the minister, amendment regarding the voting position. My question is, well, actually, I was thinking, why is it now? Why did the question came up now?
Yes.
And my question is, has it anything to do with some concern or perhaps fear because of that traumatic experience caused by the splinter group?
Well, I can answer why it came up now.
Okay.
Okay. So so first of all, let me be super clear. I haven't talked to Todd about this. I don't even know if I know he knows that there's something that I've put forward, a member supported bylaw proposal. I don't know how much he knows about what it is. Here's the reason this came up: because we needed to address ex officio members, particularly such as the treasurer. It came up because we need to by law have a treasurer. So, and we talked about how to do that, having that as a board member, and very frequently It's very common, and it's very common in our history that that person is an ex officio. So just invited to be on the board rather than elected, because it's such a specialized position, if you will. So when Tom sent his proposal to me, because you all asked him, apparently, I don't recall this, but apparently you all asked him to write something in the bylaws to fix that issue. And Tom sent his proposal to me because we worked so much together on in our past, working on policies and procedures and bylaw amendments. And I said, I want to look into why ex officio members do not have full privileges. I think they should. And why do they not? And Tom's response to me was, no, this is the way we've always done it, and because they are not elected. And so I wanted to do a little bit more research because we were working on the amendment anyway. The amendment needed to be addressed, or the bylaw needed to be addressed anyway. So I did my own research, and then when I didn't want to support Tom's proposal to come forward, just like that, I wanted to, after I did my research, to find out, oh, the default is that members, ex officio members, do have full voting privileges, do have full privileges in most nonprofit and churches, unless it is taken away from them for some reason. So if that is the default, I thought, well, why are we not doing that? What are the risks? What are the concerns? So I looked into it all. And because the issue needed to be addressed anyway, I just thought this is the perfect time to offer a different proposal. So I asked, I told Tom that that's what I wanted to do. And then you know the rest of the story. He came up with his own proposals for you to look at. And I knew the reason I did not want Tom to give that proposal is because I knew from the start that Tom is very much against this bylaw amendment. And that is fine with me. It is absolutely fine with me that Tom disagrees with this. It is, therefore, I felt it was only fair that I bring it forward to you for you to make up your own mind from my words, not from somebody who is against this proposal. So I hope that answers your question, Luba.
Yes, however, I see the two separate issues because there is treasurer ex officio and there is minister ex officio.
Yeah. So ex officio members are invited because they have a particular role. So Todd, when Todd comes to a meeting, he speaks. He can be very influential. He gets to say what he wants to say. He always does. He always has. I don't know that our senior minister, I don't believe in the past, was an ex officio member, but Todd is. So if you are intimidated by that or influenced by that, I don't know what to tell you. That's something anybody could potentially be influenced by any one of you. And you could see that it is positive if you agree with the senior minister and negative if you don't, right? He just gets a vote like anybody else does because he brings a particular role and responsibility and
Okay,
to the board.
okay. Let me clarify an issue because I think there's some issue here. I'm looking at the 2017 and the 2019 bylaws, and the treasurer is appointed, and I'm reading, appointed for a 3-year term. The term will start at the beginning of the official year. The treasurer may or may not be a trustee, And the treasurer may be a paid employee as determined by the board, but if a paid person shall not be a trustee. So there is no past absolute history that treasurer has been a trustee. So
I would like to comment on the issue, the discussion about the minister being a ex officio. And I like Todd's being there, or a minister, let's just speak that way, because it may not always be Todd. But a minister being there and hearing their perspective at the board, I value that a lot. And I do think ex officios, if followed in the usual manner, bring a lot to hear. But I do not feel that a minister should be a voting person on our board. If you wish, use the term intimidation, which I don't use that, but I feel it's just not needed, not appropriate. And in my research, I have found places that say ex officio members usually have most of the same rights as other members, but they're typically non-voting members. Now, this was where I went, and they talked about ex officio board members and how they can impact and their role on a board. So
Well-
you can find, I guess, whatever you want to support whatever you believe.
Well, I'm trying to get us back. We're not, these are arguments that about for or against a concept that might be appropriate for the congregation. What we're kind of looking at is how does this concept get before the congregation, assuming it gets there at all? And there's a,
Well, I thought you were going to ask the board if we supported this.
I'm a long way from that because I have.
Okay, well,
I have a
I
lot
guess
to
I'm
say.
ahead of times because
Yeah,
I
yeah.
just said how I
Yeah.
felt.
Okay, the question that I have is, the motion reads, I move that the bylaws be amended to restore full voting privileges to the ex officio members. That sounds like, to me, that when you say, when the motion says to restore, it implies that we had it before, which we did not. So I'm wondering whether the 9 or 10 people who signed this were misled by the word restore being in there, and whether we have a basic problem of language that presented a case or a situation that's simply not true. How?
Well, we don't have, I would
Let's
say
wait,
this to
wait,
what you're
wait,
saying.
Please, I would like to have Lynn have a chance to respond to why we have restore when we never had it in the first place.
We don't have proof that we haven't had it, Tom.
Yes, I do. I have the 2017 and 2019 bylaws. I can read them to you.
You sent them to us, I read it. But
Yeah.
what prior before that?
Prior before that, to the best of everybody's recollection about it, that I've ever asked or talked to, there was never anything like that in the past, that the bylaws in 2017 were the same as they'd been for, if not a decade and a half or more. So if you have information that's different than that, please share it with us.
Me?
Anybody.
Oh, okay. So I sorry. I used the word restore intentionally because to take privileges away, you have to intentionally do that. To remove voting privileges, you have to write that into your bylaws.
It was
Otherwise,
never there to begin with, Lynn.
pardon me?
It was never there to begin with because the minister was not a trustee until 2022. And then when you and I wrote this in the
I know,
Congress,
I'm just talking about the term ex officio as a definition. When you write your bylaws, you have to decide, I don't know who did that. I don't know when it was done. You have to decide to put in non-voting because the default is that a ex officio member has full privileges.
yeah, right.
You intentionally have to say, we take these away. We don't know why we did that. We don't know who did it. We did it because it's in there as non-voting. The default is that they have full privileges. So that's why I'm saying I want to use the word restore.
Okay,
So the group, and also let me be super clear that the 10 people or 11 people, I guess it's 11 with me. So the 10 people that I spoke to are not all necessarily for this. They want to have the discussion. So, uh, I just want to get it on the table. I'm not going to lose my head about it. I'm not going to cry about it if it doesn't pass. I want you to be really prepared if it does pass, because it is much more aligned with who we say we are. And it is possible it very well may pass.
Okay.
So if it does pass, I think you should be prepared to take the next step and make sure that the ex officio members do not affect your quorum.
May I say something?
yeah, okay.
Yeah, I'm also in
Okay.
favor of discussion. Yes, it's good. And not only that, I decided to ask people that I know, they live in Colorado, and the couple members of the church, and I asked them the question about their minister, ex officio, and whether the minister has a voting rights. And the answer was no. Why would? That was the answer. So.
Yeah, it's a great question. And the other question that is coming from the people that I'm talking to, why not?
Mhm.
Why would they not? Or why would anyone not? If that is the default, why would they not? So it is just a great conversation. And in policy governance organization, it is common. In nonprofit world, it is common that ex officio members do have full privileges. So
Yeah, boy. Can you
I
present?
know, Tom, I know you
I could-
know
I
what
could-
you think.
Well, I've researched it. I'm finding that not to be the case. That's the exception. So,
It is the
so we have different opinions, but neither one of us are presenting any facts at this point.
exactly. So it's open to discussion, and that's what people want to know. And the people that I have spoken to do want to know why if we are taking them away, they want the answer to that question. Somebody wrote this in because the default is that they have full privileges.
That's
Why?
not a default. That is not a
According
default.
to Robert's Rules of Order,
Robert's rule says if you have an ex officio, they have full privileges. That doesn't make it default. It's the bylaws that control that whether something is default or not.
but we write the bylaws. There are bylaws, Tom.
That's right. And we wrote in non-voting.
Exactly. And every people I'm talking to want to know why we did that. Why would we do that?
Okay, there are lots of reasons why for and
Yeah.
against, and they're going to come out and I'm trying to avoid this discussion because I'm going to present reasons why not, but I have artificial intelligence and I have other examples of why it's a bad idea. So I don't
Okay.
know whether that's appropriate for us to decide, but the
No.
question to me is, you've answered the best you can about the fact that you used the word restore, which I perceive as being misleading, but you've explained why you did it. The next question I have is, and I think the board needs to address this because it's a matter that could come up in the meeting when somebody asks the moderator to divide the question. To me, what you propose when you say in your motion, even though you have two separate citations, the thing is to restore privileges to ex officio members of the Board of Trustees. But yet when you look at the citations for Article 6 and Article 7, they really address two different situations, which some people may wish to vote yes on one and no on the other, et cetera, et cetera. So that's why I think the board needs to decide, are we going to have just one motion, which has two issues in it by several people's perception, or divide it into two motions so they can vote separately on a minister as an ex officio voting versus all or any other ex officios that would be voting or non-voting?
Well, so I'm happy to just use the same motion twice. If you want to separate the two amendment proposals, that would be fine with me. But I want to be careful that I want to address just those bylaws because there are other potentially ex officio members on the board that I would not think.
There are no, potential doesn't count. We're not there. So there are currently, nothing is proposed except the situation of the senior minister.
Well,
Nothing is
and the
proposed.
officers. Any
Well-
officer.
Officers are all trustees, so all trustees have voting privileges.
You could potentially have any officer on a board that if you don't, let's just say you didn't have somebody willing to be or able to be secretary. We have had ex officio members of our board as secretary too.
In our current bylaws, it says that all officers will be trustees.
I know, Tom, but sometimes they are ex officio trustees.
They are not at this point. So that's in the future and as a totally different item.
It's what we're talking about.
No,
I'm not.
the only thing that is there, well, the only thing that's real in front of us is the senior minister. We can address in the Second Amendment, and I actually would like to bifurcate it, and I told you, I sent you that with introductory language, it would be different for each motion, because each motion is different. And a single introduction to two different concepts, to me, isn't workable. And I'm trying to help you make this workable so it gets before the congregation.
I think you're making it actually more complicated than it needs to be. The motion works for both.
Okay.
By
Then,
law, we have to have a president, a secretary, and a treasurer on our board. They must be trustees, whether they are elected or ex officio.
they can't be the treasurer. No officer can be ex officio at this point, period.
What are you talking about? You have to have them.
They are not ex officio. They're elected trustees who then are elected by the board.
Can we move forward and
Yeah,
vote
I need-
on?
we need to-
Yeah.
Can
Well,
we move?
we need to have a comment from Dick and from you, but then, we need to vote,
On one, I
Well-
suggest Lynn's and let it, and decide there.
well, I see the hand up from Dick, so let me see what Dick
Yeah.
has to say.
Yeah, I just thinking about this ex official thing for the senior minister. And it may depend in some cases on the actual people involved. Because I could conceive of a situation where if the senior minister is voting a certain way, there may be a certain loyalty to the minister by board members and other people, and they may want to vote the way of the minister out of loyalty, or they may perceive it that they don't want to be disloyal to the minister. Whereas for some other ministers, maybe that won't be a big issue at all. That they'll accept everything as just normal. They're just an additional member. But there could be situations where there are issues of loyalty, and then, but that could vary depending on the person. I start with Justin on this. I can see both sides of this kind of thing. It's kind of
But we're not, we're stuck with the terminology of senior minister.
right. And we can.
Man,
The
woman,
question is, suppose one version works of this bylaw works for one minister, but just doesn't work for the next. You want to keep your minister, but he feels very strongly on certain issues, and you feel you have to support him on those issues.
I can understand your point of view, Dick.
So that's, I mean, that's the kind of thing that can always happen. Any questions, what do we do about? And I can see both sides there,
So
Well-
everybody can see both sides to that, right? And
Right.
when the senior minister votes the way you hope they do, you go, yay. And when they don't, you go, That,
If the
you don't
board,
like that.
if the
Nobody
board
does.
administrator can handle that, it's fine. You see.
Well,
if-
hopefully people on the board can handle anything that comes their way. That's
Hopefully.
one of the things that
Okay,
is
Sue,
kind of required.
Sue, you were the next person, well. Sue, you were going somewhere when you yielded to Dick.
Who, me?
Yeah,
Oh, well, I agree with what Dick said there, but I am thinking, this is quite truthfully for me, I don't know about anybody else, it's becoming very overtalked or all this other stuff brought in. I came to the meeting with a proposal from Lynn that we make a minister and voting ex officio on the board. That's what I want to deal with. And then if there's more and we have to add 2 of these, can we not? Has everybody spoken? Has everybody got their questions answered?
well, but Lynn's motion, it's one motion, I move that, and then there are 2 sections of the bylaws in there. And
Okay, so can we
So-
address Lynn's and then talk about the other sections? If we vote
They're
against
both- they're
Lynn,
both-
there's
they're
no
both
sense in
Lynn.
talking about it.
They're both Lynn's, so we have to decide whether to.
No, one is Lynn's and one is one that you brought up that would maybe, see, I'm confused.
No, there are.
Both mine.
You have Lynn's proposal, or the group that Lynn is associated with, their proposal. That's the only thing that is formally before us. We could decide as a board. Okay, let me give you a little bit of parliamentarian here. The presiding officer, according to Robert's rules, and I've researched this, is supposed to have the responsibility to not let a motion go on the floor that has 2 issues in it. And can actually say, this must be divided, and then we'd be stuck with dividing this in the meeting. And that ruling of the presiding officer can be appealed. Someone in the audience could say, I appeal your ruling. And then we vote on whether the ruling of the presiding officer is correct or not. And it's a 50-50 vote. So my alternative was to try to avoid that happening in the congregational meeting by trying to avoid this, by my seeing at least that there are 2 separate issues in Article 6 and Article 7.
Okay, would you read the 2 issues?
Well, you mean that the articles that are the recommended changes?
What's being proposed that we are supposed to say?
Can I share my screen, Tom?
Well, you can share your screen, but you don't have the 2 proposals.
I
that-
do. I have
Well,
one.
you don't have the introduction to each of the 2 separate things that I would propose if we're going to separate them. I mean, the board has what you have proposed. They've got that. The question is, can they be umbrellaed under the same I move?
Make the motion twice. I'll
What's
make the
that?
same motion 2 times. I'll make it first for the senior minister one and second for the officers one.
No, that's an option. Let's see.
It's the same motion. I'll just do the same thing 2 times. The wording works. It's not complicated. It doesn't need an introduction. It doesn't need to be bifurcated. I'll just say the same thing twice.
Well, okay, that would separate the two issues. I'm still concerned that you're calling it restore, which
I know
means,
you don't like the word, but it doesn't matter because it's okay.
well, I don't think it is okay. I think it is biased to set people up to think we're putting it back to the way it was before, and we're not.
What word would you suggest, Tom?
Well, just remove, I move the bylaws be amended to establish voting privileges rather than restore. Because we're not restoring anything.
I move that the bylaws be amended to establish full voting privileges. Okay, I love it. I love it.
Okay.
That
so
sounds
then-
good to me too.
So then your proposal would be, working with together on his to bifurcate this and to have two separate motions.
Yes, but it's the exact
Introduced
same motion.
introduced by the same motion so that people could vote on this one, yes, and that one, no, if they chose to.
Yes. Love it.
Okay.
I so move.
Okay,
And
Uh,
then I would also really recommend that you take a look at my proposal for a potential bylaw amendment that you would need to bring forward to affect, so your quorum is not affected.
Okay,
If should this pass, but it's,
I think that's going to have to wait till another day.
can
Have
you,
to- Just have,
can you read
like 2
the,
seconds. It won't take any time at all.
can you read the proposal, please? Or show it?
Um,
wait, let's decide on where we are right now and then address something else. So,
Okay,
do we
I think
have,
we've come to an agreement with the other.
no, I don't have Dick here, but,
Yeah.
oh,
Listen,
okay. So the motion would be that we would agree to allow the two motions introduced by the same wording, except dropping the word restore and putting, let's see. What did I suggest? I didn't write it down.
Establish?
To establish full voting privileges to ex officio members of the Board of Trustees, affirming their rights and responsibilities and our shared leadership in alignment with standard principles of board thing. And that would be the introduction to the two amendments for Article 6, Section 2, as you had proposed, and then same for Article 7, Section 8. So,
We are at, just, do we agree that they can go before the congregation?
yeah, as separately.
Yes.
Separate.
Okay,
I love it.
okay,
Perfect.
those,
then-
those in favor of that, let's have a show of hands on that. Would be what would go in the notice for the meeting. So we have unanimous that would go in the meeting as the same introductory statement for two different articles to be amended.
And the explanation that I sent also.
Okay, now that's another issue. So let's just deal with one issue at a time, because I do want to discuss the explanation.
Well,
Okay, board, we have a vote unanimously to approve that. As we just discussed, to two separate motions. Now, I move that the explanation that you put in there not be put in the notice, because it is essentially testimony and it deserves to be in the meeting and not in a notice of the meeting. So is there a second to that?
so what's the explanation? Could you read that?
The explanation reads, the term ex officio means by virtue of one's office or position, that's information. Ex officio members of our board are invited to serve because of the roles they hold and the expertise that they bring. And then in standard governance practice, they're considered full members, both voice and vote. That's an opinion, not a fact. When voting privileges are withheld, it diminishes their role and signals a lack of trust in their capacity to serve as equal partners. This amendment seeks to demonstrate our trust in those invited to serve and affirm our commitment to shared leadership and mutual accountability under our policy governance model. That to me, that is entirely blatantly testimony in favor of it, and I don't believe it belongs in a notice.
So what is the question?
I'm
That's-
following the,
I made a motion, and is anybody going to second it so we could discuss
I'll
it?
second it.
Okay. Comments from the board people, and then Lynn can jump in on it. You have your hand up, Dick. Is that?
It would seem to me if we're going to have something like that, then maybe what you really need is a pro statement and a con statement.
Well, that is that's a clear option, but that's not typically what you put in a notice.
Yeah, but maybe
I've
that
never
would be
seen a
the,
notice like that.
but maybe
Except for
instead of
the ones
explanation.
that we've written and have gone out in previous years. I followed your exact protocol from previous
Yeah.
board documents that have been sent out in purple even. So,
In the notice of a meeting?
yes, in the documents that were sent out last year, they had explanations in purple. I followed your protocol exactly, Tom. So
Were they
this is-
supportive or informational?
they were informational so that the congregation would understand why this was being brought forward. This is being brought forward by people who want to have this conversation, and that is the explanation. All of them have seen it. They all know that it's going to go forward with their name. So I believe that it is the right thing to do to explain to people who don't know what I'm talking about or
Isn't that
why it's being brought
what
up.
testimony in the meeting is for, not testimony you put in the notice.
Well, then, Tom, why did we do it before? Why
I'm
did
not
you
su-
do it
I'm
before?
not sure what you're referring to, but I hope it was only informational and not not statements for or against. But that's what we have to decide tonight.
If you take it out, I believe that is completely unfair because there is precedent from a board doing this in the past in the exact same color even. And you were part of that, Tom. And I know that you do not agree with this proposal and you will get your opportunity to speak. This is being brought forward for this reason in that explanation by the 11 people on that list. And if you don't allow that to go forward, you are demonstrating your bias much more
This is the
so than
board, this is
anyone
not,
else's.
Lynn, this is not my decision. This is a vote of the board to what to do in this instance, and regardless.
Yes, but you are bringing it up. No one else would have.
That doesn't make any difference. I brought it up, the motion seconded, now the board has to decide this, period. So are there any comments about whether or not to include this or not? Justin?
Yeah, as I understand it, the explanation is that why aren't they entitled to their privileges? That's my question. And it seems to me like if that's the answer, there's a lot of reasons, other reasons to be considered. Not whether they've been deprived of their privileges or of their rights, but perhaps they have undue influence. Maybe some people like the treasurer, because they have more financial knowledge than the rest of us, should have undue influence. Or maybe the minister should, because he's certainly in a position to be responsible for what we decide. But to me, there's more than one reason, and someone's being deprived, if that's what the argument is, that they're being deprived of rights they formerly had.
But Justin, the issue is, does this explanation as proposed to go with this notice in the formal notice of the meeting, does it belong in the notice or not? So you have
Well, I think that's for the others to decide.
you think what?
I think that there's more possible reasons than someone's being deprived of their rights, which is the way I understand. Which is why I think the explanation is there. It sounds like that's the only reason why someone could object to it. That is that they're somehow being deprived of something they formerly had.
Okay,
No,
okay, I see your hand, Dick, and
well,
wait,
I'm
guess
not, I
wait a
can't
minute,
say
wait a minute, Dick, I see Dick's hand up first.
okay.
Yeah, I guess I would vote against the explanation unless there's someone's assigned to write a pro statement and someone else is assigned to write a con statement. Because without an explanation, it would be then up to when it's moved at the annual meeting, it'd be end up to the speakers in support and against it, or to actually make these explanations. And as Justin points out, there may be a variety of reasons for this or that, and maybe we might actually get more information out that way too. That's another possibility.
So Dick, did I understand you to say you were against this being in the motion?
Well, I think I'm against the exclamation as it is, and that's that we're, many ballots, there's a pro statement and a con statement plus an explanation, which is an awful lot. I'd rather see a pro statement, a con statement, or none at all, and let those statements be made in the actual meeting itself, so people can see the different viewpoints right there.
Yeah, I agree with Dick. Yeah, that's what I thought, that there could be testimonials from both for and against, and the whole congregation will hear that.
Sue,
I feel it's, should not be in there, that it was be something that someone would come to the microphone and explain in discussion to make it clear for the congregation.
or be presented by those, who have made the motion, but.
Yes,
Yeah,
The
yeah.
people who make the motion would have first dibs at the microphone normally.
Oh, yeah.
They'd be asked to do their explanation, and then people will be asked to ask comments or make con statements and whatever. That would be
Absolutely.
normal protocol.
Do you have anything, Cindy? We haven't heard from you. This is only with regard to whether to include the explanation. We already decided to put the motions, in the notice.
Yeah, my inclination would to not put it in the notice and let people speak on the floor in the meeting.
Mhm.
Okay. So is it time for us to vote? Any other comments that, Lynn, you're not a board member for sure. Nancy's not a board member, but if either of you want to jump in for a final comment before the board votes. Okay, then,
I'll just send you your precedented document.
okay, those in favor of, I'll put it in the positive note, those in favor of including the explanation, raise your hand. Those opposed to putting the explanation. Okay, it's unanimous. We will not include that explanation and let the meeting, we'll have all kinds of testimony, I'm sure, in the meeting.
Tom, will you clarify for me, as the person presenting the motion, do I have 4 minutes and then people have 2 minutes to speak?
Well, that's kind of what we have to decide in the meeting. Our meetings typically tend to go long. What we've kind of done in the past was a little longer for the presenter and then shorter periods for other people, alternating pro and con.
That's exactly the minutes that we have done in the past. 4 minutes for the presenter and 2 for a pro and con. That's what I'm asking.
That seems reasonable to me, or maybe even 5 minutes for the presenter. Yeah.
Well, it has to be decided at the beginning of the meeting. When I give a parliamentary advisor thing, we'll describe, the suggested time limits, and if somebody wants to even pose a limitation on the amount of debate, like 20 minutes or 25 minutes, so that could happen. So we'll see, that will come out of the meeting and can be decided by those who are present at the meeting.
So I know that that's happened prior to a meeting, because I've prepared statements before and timed them. So I've known going into a meeting. I've not come to a meeting and not known what I was entitled to before I got there. So I need to know that time.
Well, I would say that be on the conservative and add, aim for 2 minutes. And if it turns out that the congregation agrees to longer than that, then you'd have more time.
Yeah. So
In other words, the board can't sit here and decide that.
you have in the past.
I'm telling you what the board can and cannot do and that's the way that it's going to be decided, is in the congregational meeting when board looks at the agenda and sees.
How do
as
people
much is on the
prepare?
I
How
think
will
we can
people
re-
who want to speak know what they should prepare? How much time they have to prepare? Everybody understands that prior to the meeting. In the past,
Okay.
that has always been the case.
Okay, let's put it this, would
Nancy
we
has.
could make a position for the board to recommend speaking times, and we could do that, but I see Nancy has her hand up.
Yeah,
Yeah, some of these proposals can't be made clear to the congregation in 2 minutes. So I really urge you to consider 4 minutes for whoever has to present the proposal. At
Okay,
least
that's just
I would
what,
second
my-
that.
that's just what I was gonna do as a result of the conversation here. A motion to, I make a motion that the board recommend to the moderator and the congregation for 4 minutes for the originator of a motion or a resolution, and 2 minutes for speakers after that. With the standard procedure, you can only speak once until everybody else has spoken. That sound reasonable?
reasonable.
Okay, that will be, that's approved, I guess, show of hands that that's what the board will recommend for the meeting. Unanimous, okay. Let's see. Okay, I think that addressed that. We know what the notice, I can communicate tomorrow morning with Rebecca about the board's vote on the recommending approval of the apartheid. And now the only remaining question is, does the board wish to take a position on the two motions that we're going to present regarding these things? Or do we want to have no board position at all?
Tom, can I just, I'm just going to click share because I've put that proactive potential article in Article 6, Section 6 that you may want to just talk about. And then I'll shut up, I promise.
What do you mean proactive?
Well, if either one of those amendments pass that I am recommending or I am bringing forward, that you look at this. I can't share my screen to show you what are the changes. But this is Article 6, Section 6 that addresses the quorum of a board meeting.
I'm looking at your chat. Is you got something in there that is,
It's in the chat.
now, is that the way it is or the way you want it to be?
That's what I would recommend that you bring forward if you don't want your quorum affected with ex officio members.
Yes, I understand, Lynn. Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yeah.
let me look at my copy of the bylaws, see how that reads. What do you got? Article 6, Section 6?
The only difference is the word elected and then the last sentence.
Let's see, Article 6, Section 6. Article 6, Section
Mhm.
2/3 of the trustees shall constitute a quorum for meeting, and you're saying 2/3 of the only word you're adding is the word elected, is that right?
Correct. And then the last sentence I'm adding.
Presence or absence shall not be quorum.
Hmm.
Okay, are other people looking at the chat thing so you can see if you want to see it written?
Yeah, I would support that as a recommendation of the board.
I do too.
Okay, I'm gonna take a screenshot with my phone here of that. Okay, so if the motion, let's make a motion, I'll make a motion that we and even if these fail, this would be okay to have in there. Even if the motions fail, this would be okay to have in there. It would just be kind of irrelevant until there was such time as there were anything other than elected trustees. So the motion would be to move to amend Article 6, Section 6 to insert the word elected in front of the word trustees and to add the sentence at the end, the presence or absence of ex officio members shall not affect the quorum. I'll throw in the word the quorum. Okay, let me get rid of my.
Second it.
Yeah, okay, the motion's been made and seconded.
Are we not doing what you're suggesting, Lynn? I see you shaking your head like we've
Oh,
got
I'm
it right.
sorry. Robert is in the room with
Oh.
the conversation.
I thought, oh, we're not ever right.
Oh, no,
Okay.
no, it's great, and I think it's a really good idea. Either way, you're right,
Yeah,
Tom.
yeah,
Either way,
yeah,
whether it's
right.
passes or fails.
Okay, those in favor of us proposing that amendment in the agenda for the annual meeting? I see a unanimous 6 people in favor of.
I don't see Justin's hand.
Yeah,
Oh,
I'm abstaining.
Oh. okay, so excuse me, Justin, we have 5 with 1 abstention.
Yes.
You want to be abstained by name or just?
Yeah,
have
that's fine. Yeah, abstain. Yeah. Justin abstains.
Okay, 5 approval, Justin abstaining.
Mhm.
Okay, I think, according to my list, the only thing left is member input. We've had considerable good constructive input so far. Either from Lynn or Nancy, anything else?
Well, Jean Larson,
Oh, what? Where's Jean?
Jean
she's
is
there.
here.
She's been
Oh.
there.
Oh,
Hello. Hello.
my chat was hiding. Sorry.
All right. My comment after listening to this discussion is that I have never liked having the board say yes or nay to a motion on changing the bylaws. Again, it's this position of authority that's held by the board, and I just feel it's not appropriate for them to comment on amendments to the bylaws at a meeting, because people either out of loyalty will go with the board or out of laziness, they'll go with whatever the board recommends. So I just wanted to make that comment.
Okay, well, at this point, we haven't, the board hasn't taken a position for or against. Either the last thing that we just did with that section or Article 6, Section 6, or the issues regarding voting or non-voting. Board has not taken a position. We did take a position, since you might not have been here, on recommending the apartheid be passed or approved by the congregation.
Okay, that's what I'm talking about.
Well, we did it.
That's
So,
not a
Okay.
bylaw.
yeah, it's not a bylaw.
Well, but in the past, at congregational meetings, when amendments are proposed, the board always takes a position. And I know I've had amendments and I think, oh, well, that's a done deal. The people will just vote with the board. And I would just suggest you consider that as
We already,
being inappropriate.
we already did the thing on apartheid and.
No, I'm talking in general. I'm
Oh,
talking in
okay,
general.
cool. All right, well, okay, thank you for your comment.
You're welcome.
Okay. No other business to come before us. When I,
Oh, no, I thought we was, are we gonna take a position on the first 2 proposals from Lynn or not?
well, we did not, And you're more than welcome to bring that up as something that we could take a position
Oh,
on.
okay. I just thought that you were asking us to, at some point, to take a position on those. Or you're not asking us?
I'm not asking on that. If someone wants to make a motion, that would be fine.
Okay. Mhm.
Okay, I think we're completed here, and what I'll do, since we kind of were making the little arrangement with, separating that into two separate things, kind of on the fly, I will put that together tomorrow and send it out to the board and to you, Lynn, to make sure that it's what everybody expects. And then, so it's kind of something in process, but the intent was clear in what we intended to do in the meeting. Yep. Okey doke.
Well,
Thank
I'm
you.
exhausted. I don't know about anybody else.
Yes, everybody else
I'm
is.
gonna join you for that drink, Tom.
We'll be at the Patron restaurant in about half an hour.
Okay, bye-bye, Nancy. Oh, Nancy has something.
Yeah, just a quick reminder, Karen Dornsteele will be the presenter with regard to apartheid free.
Yeah,
Okay.
So just so that's in the minutes, and Tom, you remember.
Oh, okay, let me put that down, that make sure that she would be, so, the resolution is there, it'll be published. And so she'd be addressing the support of the resolution.
My understanding is she would read it out loud, make one statement of support, and then Gordon takes over, and whatever happens, happens, and she would be there to address questions, yes.
Well, and of course, what we hope, just by way of ad-libbing, I think it goes without saying, but it's still something hard for people to do, is we don't need the same comment made 25 times. If someone makes a comment and then someone follows up saying, I support the comments made by Jane Doe. That helps us get through a meeting, because otherwise we could be, we only, even that we have a 2-hour meeting planned, and we start losing people about an hour and a half into the meeting, and then we have to keep changing the voting numbers to pass. And to pass a bylaw, it takes 2/3 majority. And for most other motions are 50% motions. That kind of stuff, but we still need to know how many voting members we have at any given time, and that's going to include those who are Zooming, which is going to be working with Terry Anderson through Dick Steele to try to run that part of the show for us. Okay?
I'm going to drink wine.
Yes. Thanks for
Sure.
being here, Lynn, and sharing your thoughts.
yes.
Thank you,
Yes,
everybody.
everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Mhm.